Are you in your 20s but you feel suffocated by your job or maybe even your relationship? Perhaps you're constantly craving change and want to do something crazy. Maybe you're always comparing yourself to your friends. Now, if that sounds like you, the chances are you're going through a quarter-life crisis. Have you heard of a quarter-life crisis?
Not before today.
Yeah, I have.
No, I haven't.
What do you describe your idea of a quarter-life crisis to be?
I would say just feeling that you're not exactly where you want to be, rushing to get there.
It's same like a midlife crisis, but when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
So obviously, you're kind of thinking, I'm getting old now, I don't know what to do in my life.
Now I'm joined by an expert, Dr. Oliver Robinson, who's done some research into this new phenomenon. Hello, Dr. Robinson.
Hello.
And tell us then what your research found the main symptoms of quarter-life crisis to be.
Well, firstly, I wouldn't call them symptoms,
Okay.
because that would suggest that there's something clinically wrong with you if you've got symptoms, whereas this is quite a normal experience.
Yeah.
But the typical features of quarter-life crisis are firstly that a person finds themselves in a situation in their, well, usually in their mid-20s, but it can happen a bit earlier, can happen a bit later, where they feel that something about their life situation is problematic. The main causes are being in your mid-20s, or a bit younger, or a little bit older than that, and making decisions that you then come to realise aren't the right decisions for you in the long term.
Dealing with like growing old and what they're going to do the rest of their life.
Coming out of university, you kind of go into a bit of a lull, a bit of depression. Trying to get a job can be quite difficult.
There's like a behavioural thing about when someone's presented with too many options, they don't actually pick anything.
So what would your advice be to them to overcome their quarter-life crisis?
Don't be afraid of change, but don't be afraid to take time out and experiment. Don't feel you've got to jump straight into something new.
I went to see counsellor and therapist Patrick Shepherd to see what his take is on the quarter-life crisis. Do you think it's an actual crisis?
I do, yes. I mean, throughout human history, people have found it difficult to move from being a teenager to being an adult.
Do you think that people who are perhaps more privileged go through more of a quarter-life crisis than those that aren't as privileged?
I do, very much so. And I think that is the rich child's problem, really, I've seen, is too much choice. And just generally recognising that the elite is the elite, and it always has been, and they tend to look after themselves, but the debate is also put forward by them. They dictate the terms of the debate. It has to be reframed so that most people's ordinary lives are seen as much more precious, and that's where the opportunities have to be.
If you actually broadened out the opportunities to more people and there was more access to everyone, those less privileged as well, that actually more people would be suffering from a quarter-life crisis.
Youth unemployment, it's 60% in Greece, it's 55% in Spain, it's 20% here. There is a very real change, which is there's much more competition, and the competition is fiercer, and the sense of people in the world is more fluid and changing, and it's now a global village. If something happens in the UK, it can go around the world in a heartbeat.
So whether you think it's an actual quarter-life crisis or maybe just a rite of passage, the word of the day seems to be relax. If you talk it through, you're likely to be just fine.